Right, so yes, it looks like the gremlins have left my computer alone for now, and it is letting me actually record my voice.
Excellent.
So we are good to go.
Awesome.
We've just had a little nightmare, but
Right?
that is that's par for the course.
Absolutely, right? Just these challenges happen.
Yeah. Welcome to Rowan Pine. My name is Niamh, and you guys are probably noticing that there are some different voices that you're hearing right now. I am joined very kindly by Evan and Chelsea from It Came from the Maritimes.
Howdy.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
I started last year doing a Sea-Tember theme. It was literally, I realized the only things that I wanted to talk about last September were maritime themed things. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a thing out of it. So if there's one thing I can do is make a theme.
And what a great theme.
Yeah, I had a feeling you guys would be partial to it, that you guys would appreciate a Sea-Tember. Because your podcast is very much, well, it's all in the name, right? It's very much maritime and sea themed. Like, what made you use that as your angle? Like, was it just all the folklore that you were interested in, or what was it?
So a lot of it stemmed from the fact that I guess I love more of the spooky side of folklore. Evan loves more of the fun side of it, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
But we're both obsessed with where we're from. We both lived away from Nova Scotia for quite a few years, and here we are as adults. We gravitated back towards the area, and a lot of it is just the rich heritage and history from this area. And we just wanted to share some of the tales that we grew up hearing with other folks. And it worked out well because growing up, I traumatized Evan, who's my younger brother, with all these local ghost stories. So now I get to traumatize others. So.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
It is.
I mean, not for me, but... And I will say that the area that we're in is actually on the east coast of Canada. It's actually called the Maritimes. So there's we're very related to the sea. We're kind of peninsula and islands and stuff around here that contains it all. So a lot of things related to it are all the folklore kind of begins and ends with the ocean around here usually.
And there's something so, like, I think it's like a special atmosphere that it gives to stories about, like, the sea, and, like, you have your ghost ships and your sea monsters and your hauntings and all of that. And it's just, I think that's why I started doing Sea-Tember, because I was like, there's such rich, like, history there, and, like, superstition and all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I'm so happy to have you guys on Rowan and Pine, because as our regular listeners know, I'm currently flying solo. My co-host Emily is deep in the trenches of being a mother of 2 young children. Her oldest child is turning 3, so she is very much like deep in it. So she just needs a little break right now. But it means that I get to talk to people like you, and I get to have other podcasts and other creators on, which is... It's pretty damn cool.
Oh, we're so happy to be here. We're really excited about this.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't think of anybody I wanted more for Sea-Tember. So, yes. So I realize we are a whole 4 minutes in, and I have not given what our topic is this episode. So Evan and Chelsea have already covered this on their podcast. So I want to make sure that all of you know to go and check that out after you've listened to this one. But our topic for Episode 47 is Selkies, which is something that I touched on last year because we did a full-length mermaids episode, and mermaids and Selkies have a lot of overlap, which I'm sure you both know.
They do.
And I was very tempted to cover Selkies along with mermaids, but I needed to like put the reins on myself a little bit, because I tend to do that a lot. I'll like realize something relates to something else, and you cover it all in one episode, and you're like, I could have gotten 2 whole episodes out of this and talked about it so much more. And it worked out for the best.
Oh, it's so true. Last year we did a mermaids and a Selkies episode, and similarly at first I had planned on tackling Selkies within the mermaid episode.
Right.
But then Evan said, he was like, no, I could do an entire Selkies episode. Like there's enough here. So
I'm so glad you did. Because, yeah, I was re-listening to your Selkies episode in preparation for this. And I love that, like, because as we will get into, it's very much Scottish folklore, and then it shows up in Irish folklore, Icelandic folklore, but you had a very specific Nova Scotian spin on it, which I think is really unique because anybody going into this will obviously do what I'm about to do, which is the obvious ones. So it's nice that you have your specific regional spin and your regional knowledge, like putting it in there. All that being said, I'm going to actually get into the nitty-gritty of the episode and the script that we have. So trying to pin down exactly what a Selkie is can be tricky. Different sources often describe them in slightly different ways, but most stories agree on one thing. Selkies live as seals in the water, and when they come onto land, they shed their seal skins to take on human form. So they're basically shapeshifters. What makes things even more interesting is the huge variety of names they go by, which usually depends on the region or local dialect. The word Selkie actually comes from older Scots words like Selch or Selk, which just means seal. Depending on where you look, you might hear them called Silkies, Selkie folk, sea folk, fairy seals, or fin folk. Though that is actually a whole other category of folklore, which I'll get into a little bit more later, and even more in our short episode this month. I'm going to dedicate our pine cones to fin folk. Have you covered fin folk?
No, we haven't. It's something that we've seen a lot kind of like in the peripheries around mermaids and selkies, but never really kind of fully dove into.
Yeah.
We're excited to hear more.
I came across a writer who was being very specific about how finfolk are a separate category, and I was like, I feel like he has been arguing this his whole life. Like sometimes you'll come across that when somebody is very intense about this one thing, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to cover it separately as well then.
That's it. It's their passion. You don't want to make the wrong people mad.
Exactly. And people do get kind of intense about folklore sometimes, which is interesting.
They do.
It is, well, I suppose it's heritage, and it's stories that people grew up with really close to their hearts. So Selkie stories turn up all around the North Atlantic, especially in Scotland, Ireland, Iceland, and, as I learned in your episode, Nova Scotia. I think we can pin down why the tales traverse the Atlantic with the immigration and all of that. But were there any like specific differences in Nova Scotian Selkie stories that you noticed? Or was there anything that was, maybe the angle was different or anything like that?
I mean, it's obvious that you just see a lot of things that are pretty one-to-one there. Like, if you go to our episode, and you'll be talking about this later, I'm sure, with all the skin stealing and all that stuff. That's all pretty there. And then, of course, Nova Scotia literally translates to New Scotland, so we just copy a lot of the Scottish things there, obviously. I'd say it's more in the writing that there tends to be a little bit of a different charm. I'm not quite sure how to explain it, though. Can you?
Yeah, so I find with it, so what we've noticed when we're researching our stories is because a lot of folks in Nova Scotia have descended from Scottish settlers. We've noticed there are a lot of consistencies to the point where, especially when we're doing Fae-related episodes, there's certain stories that we need to do a bit of a deeper dive to determine, okay, was this actually a story set in Nova Scotia, or is this a story that occurred in Scotland that someone who moved to Nova Scotia is telling? But I don't know. I don't even know how to quite put words to it, but Nova Scotians, and I guess Canadians in general, have just, I don't know, a bit of a, I guess there's the traditional like Canadian dialect or accent. So there's a lot of a difference in some of the words that are used. It's almost, I find tales from Nova Scotia are often told more casually than tales from Europe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the European stories could be, they sound like somebody reciting a fairy tale almost.
Yes.
Whereas maybe Nova Scotian stories are more like gossip. Like, this is what happened. And,
exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, so-and-so was out and about when they happened to see these three young gals dancing on the shore. So
yeah.
It's got like, your weird uncle is going to tell you the story, and you're going to be like, and he's going to tell it as if it actually happened to him. And then you're going to find out that he was told it by like 3 other people.
Yeah.
That is also a big thing in Ireland, where I will have grown up hearing a story, and then somebody from the other end of the country will tell me the same story. And it's devastating, because I was convinced that was something that actually happened to the person who told me. And I'm like, how are you so convincing? You just we're reciting something that you heard. Like, it's
Right?
it's crazy. Yeah. So in the Orkney Islands off the coast of Scotland, that is where some of the earliest tales were told. They're called the Selkie folk. They wear seal skins that let them swim under the waves, and when they come ashore, they peel them off to become human. They're usually grey or common seals, and they are always described as striking. Dark eyes, black hair, and a beauty that's just a little bit otherworldly. In Ireland, they're called Roans, and in places like Donegal, where I'm from, they were remembered as friendly and even lucky to meet. Irish Selkies are usually said to take the shape of brown seals, because we have to be different from Scottish people, apparently. But like in Scotland, the key detail is the skin. Without it, they cannot go back to the sea. In Iceland, the idea of seal folk goes back to the Saga period, so that's from the settlement of Iceland around 870 AD until 1056 AD. And we will even hear later about a seal with human eyes. There, people sometimes said the transformation only happened on a single night each year, like the Epiphany, when the barrier between land and sea was at its thinnest. That brings us into this concept that I was not planning to talk about on this episode, but it was one of those things I just rabbit holed. Just the concept of the sea shore as a liminal space. Writer Jason Mark Harris talks about the shore as a metaphysical contact zone or a liminal space. So the shore is a borderland between the wild and civilized, where supernatural contact is possible. Selkie stories come in many versions, but most follow the same basic pattern. As David Thompson points out in his book, The People of the Sea, A Journey in Search of the Sea Legend, one of the main ideas he explores is the concept of liminal and literal spaces. That's Littoral, not just literal. And how in Selkie folklore these two overlap. So I wanted to ask you, have you come across the sea as a liminal space, that concept, before?
We have. Our province, Nova Scotia, it's quite small, so you're never too far from the water at any point. And I do find most of our towns do line the coastline and the shore. And we found that most of the stories, now, of course, there are some set deep in the woods, which in Nova Scotia is only so deep. But we find almost every story we've covered does occur at that shoreline. And that ranges from encounters with fairies, like there's a fairy cave on the shore. Even UFO sightings happened along the coastline. Yeah. And a lot of the apparitions, like we have so many different grey ladies that roam the shores.
Oh, cool. I love a good grey lady story. I don't know what is
Me too.
Like, but that is like, I am also the spooky girl in our, in my podcast partnership. Emily is a lot more of like the herbalism and like animal folklore and all of that. And I'm like, I want to scare the bejesus out of people, please.
Right.
Isn't it funny that there does seem to be
dynamic.
that like combination? Like Evan is more into like the actual like creatures and the monsters and the like the actual like art of it, and you're just like, no, I just want the spookiness. I want it to be
Right.
I want my inner
All
goth
the
to come out.
ghosts. That's it. There was 1 month last winter where we were lining up which episodes we wanted to record, and Evan was like, maybe a few less little girl ghosts this month.
My wife was sitting in and she's not big on ghost stories, and she was just kind of like, afterwards she was like, so Chelsea talked about just a lot of little girls dying. And I was like, yeah, you're not wrong.
I don't write the folklore tales. I'm just here to share them.
Less little girl ghosts is like, that's a sentence that you never thought you would have to say in your life. It's like, less little girl ghosts.
Right? Evan's here to share the Selkies with the world, so it balances out.
See, that's it. Like, he has a romantic heart, so he's like, I'm here to talk about like seals breaking people's hearts.
Exactly.
So liminal, as we are familiar with on Rowan Pine, means in between. It's kind of a threshold or space of transition where one thing becomes another. Examples in folklore include crossroads, which we have a whole episode on, forests, and at certain times of the year, like Samhain. The littoral refers to specifically the shoreline, that zone where land and sea meet. Think of the beach where the waves crash on sand and rocks, tide pools filled with starfish, anemones, and sometimes even an octopus. It's the soft sand where you dig your hands down and pull them up covered in tiny sand crabs. For Selkies, this in-between space is everything. The liminal is a powerful space to occupy. It is where magic happens. They exist both liminally and literally. They live in the sea as seals, but come ashore as humans. Their shore is their boundary, their bridge between two worlds. It's a space where transformations happen, where identities shift, and where the natural and supernatural blur. This blend of sea and land, human and seal, is at the heart of Selkie stories and what makes them so compelling. As mentioned, Icelandic Selkies appear on Epiphany, which is around January 6th, which marks the end of the Christmas season and the transition into ordinary time in the Christian calendar. And this creates a liminal threshold. In Irish tales, sometimes the island settings themselves are a liminal space. They exist between the expanse of ocean and the mainland of Ireland. In Scottish tradition, supernatural beings like kelpies, water horses, which I thought were the same thing, but maybe not. Finfolk, Selkies appear where sea meets land. As I sort of mentioned in the introduction part, I'm going to talk about Selkies in 3 different traditions. We have Scottish, Irish, and Icelandic. So I'm going to start with the Scottish Selkie traditions. And of course, we're going to have some folktales too, because I know people like those. The Orkney Islands, where many Selkie stories come from, have a strong Norse heritage. For centuries, these islands were settled and ruled by Vikings, making Norse culture a big part of local life and folklore. This is why the beliefs and myths from Orkney often reflect Norse ideas about shape-shifting and sea spirits, blending with older Celtic and Scottish traditions. So when we talk about Selkies in Orkney, we're also tapping into that rich mix of Norse and Islander stories about creatures that move between land and sea, human and animal. Selkies were said to be either fallen angels cursed to live as seals, which is a very strange curse. You go from an angel to like catching fish in your mouth, I guess.
Right. Yeah, of all the animals.
Yeah. Or humans punished to wear seal skins forever. When they shed those skins on land, they became beautiful men and women. These stories say male Selkies sometimes had secret romances with human women. Though clumsy as seals, when in human form, they were handsome and charming. But it could not have smelled good. I just always think that. It's like he's so beautiful, but he stinks of fish.
No, and I know I've seen some of the things with the male Selkies, and the way they're always described in the stories is I think of romance book covers where it's the lonely fisherman's wife and the Selkie.
Yeah.
And Harlequin romance.
Yeah, always has abs for some reason. Seals are known for having abs.
Of course.
Of course. For female Selkies, the myths tend to be more melancholy, of course. The tale usually begins with Selkie women dancing in the moonlight, their seal skins laid on the ground beside them. A mortal man comes across them, enchanted by their beauty, and hides one of their skins. In a huge similarity to mermaid lore, without it, the Selkie woman can no longer return to the sea and is forced to live a human life, often marrying the man. Years later, one of her children discovers the hidden skin and returns it to her. She embraces her child tenderly before slipping back into the sea, leaving her human life behind. That's the quintessential, if you just had to bullet point a Selkie story, that's just it's pretty much every single one of them there.
Yeah.
I was about to say the one that we told on our podcast was very similar to the Selkie wife format.
Yeah, yes. Yours was 3 brothers, right? That was the... Yeah.
The twist was kind of that there was a combo of 3 of them.
I don't want to spoil too much of your podcast, but yeah, it was I was like, oh, it's actually different to everything that I've been reading up until now. One distinction that I have from my research and that I have to make, as I said, because people get intense about it, is about a fascinating sea people from Orkney and Shetland, which is another set of islands off the coast of Scotland. Finfolk. The Finfolk are amphibious, able to move between water and land with ease, living comfortably in both worlds. Known as powerful sorcerers, they can calm the seas to help fishermen, or unleash storms as punishment. If a human is asked to do them a favour, the Finfolk might reward them with copper coins, but never silver, for some reason, which they value highly. It's They were like, we're not going to do too much here. Copper's enough for these human people, okay? We'll save our good stuff for us. Finfolk are fully humanoid except for their daughters who are mermaids.
Oh.
Yeah.
Versatile.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, you kind of wonder, like, does she turn into a Finn person later on? Or is she a mermaid her whole life? Like, is it just the men are just Finn folk? It's very vague, which I love. I love folklore vagary. Just like, yeah, just don't explain any of this. Just report it as fact. No, we just have to accept it.
It leaves room for interpretation.
Yeah. And somebody's like drunk uncle to tell the story as if it's himself.
Exactly.
Their name comes from the fins draped over their bodies like clothing, making them hard to distinguish from humans at a distance, though up close, those fins give them away, which I would hope so, because nobody wants to just run into somebody in a bar with wearing fins. This unique blend of human and sea features sets them apart from other mythical sea creatures in the region. And I'm going to, as I said, delve deeper into Finfolk this month on our Pine Cones short bonus episode. Unlike mermaids or Finfolk, Selkies didn't live in underwater kingdoms. They were always found on sea rocks, their seal skins beside them as they played or combed their hair in groups. If startled, they'd quickly slip back into their skins and dive beneath the waves. The exact moments when they could shift between seal and human were mysterious. Tied to tides for certain nights, but whether basking on sunlit rocks or disappearing beneath the waves, Selkies remain a magical part of the sea's secret in-between world. One emphasis about the Scottish brand of Selkie stories is the tragic inevitability. Once the skin is found, the Selkie will always leave and return to her old life. To be honest, good for her, because she didn't exactly choose to go there, you know? You could have been diving beneath the waves and like having fun with all the other sea creatures, and now you have to come up here and do taxes. Like, what are you going to choose?
That's it. Who wants that?
Yeah, nobody wants that. So now we transition into Irish Selkie traditions, and I am incredibly biased because I always spend far too much time if there's an Irish folktale or an Irish brand of folklore. I just can't help it.
Of course.
Irish Selkies, known as Roans, which comes from the Irish word Rowan, which is R-O-F-A-D-N. They are tied to brown seals. There is a lot of overlap between Selkies and mermaids in Irish folklore, which makes it a nightmare to research. We had sort of mentioned that like it's kind of hard to separate mermaids and Selkies when you are researching them. You obviously found that too, that like you were tempted to make it all into one episode. Why do you think there's so much overlap? Because a lot of it is like it's usually with the mermaid, he hides her tail. With the Selkie, he hides her skin. She goes off into the waves. Like, do we have any ideas like why they evolved into two separate creatures? Or was it maybe just like the game of telephone between like cultures? Like one person said it was a mermaid, one person said it was a seal woman. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Honestly, there's part of me that this might sound kind of silly, but I know there's a piece of me that wonders if, because a lot of the mermaid sightings were very possibly like manatees or seals spotted by men who were delirious after months at sea or scurvy.
Dehydrated.
I wonder if maybe they... Well, right, they're going through it.
Yep.
So maybe they were reluctant to admit they were accidentally attracted to a seal. So they decided over time, oh no, it was this beautiful woman. I know there was, It's honestly what I think of, because like maybe the ego got in the way. I know there was one mermaid sighting in St. John's, Newfoundland, and the ship captain described this creature as a well-proportioned woman-like creature with a round head and hair-like streaks and a broad-hooked arrow tail. So the hair-like streaks could easily be like seaweed or something.
Yeah.
So it really does make you wonder if they just were trying to hide their shame.
One thing that I know I did find when I was looking into Selkies was that there was some people from like Nordic countries that they would have encountered that would be in sealskin kayaks. And I've heard some things where they think it was like almost either people were really not understanding what a kayak was, or they would say like, oh, this like woman that like some Scottish guy married a woman who came from this place, and they were just like, oh yeah, she came over as a seal or something, and there was just like a translation error there.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's kind of like people who were like, that could have been one version of like marrying someone from somewhere else.
Yeah, and if you take the skin off the kayak, you can't use it anymore, and the person can't go back out to the sea. So
yes.
Yeah. That actually is so interesting, and that makes a lot of sense. I love that when you can like trace back maybe where it started out, and then just see, because like, why let the truth get in the way of a good story? So people will just keep adding to something. Because it's just so much better to hear about like some lonely fisherman just found the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, and she married him, you know?
Right.
I mean, yeah.
That's it. Add a little magic to the story.
Yeah. Irish Selkie tales are more integrated into family or clan identity. Families like the Keneallys and Lees, those family names claim to be descended from Selkies. Can I please say, if anybody listening, if somebody tries to chat them up saying that they're descended from a Selkie, just run. Just be like, oh, I'm a Keneally. That person is not healthy. The stories are often less about abduction, more about logging and lineage. There are also themes of freedom and, as we will get into it, even Irish independence, because we have to shoehorn that into absolutely everything here. Okay, so I'm going to read you a folktale that comes from the National Folklore Collection from University College Dublin. These are stories collected from school children as told to them. Now, the story itself was very bare bones, so I have enhanced it a little bit to make it more of a folktale. But all of the facts are the same as were reported in the original story. So this is called The Seal Changes Into a Woman. Long ago, on the wild coast of Sligo, there lived a fisherman named O'Dowd. One grey morning, while walking the shore, he caught sight of a great seal basking on a flat rock. Thinking of the fine catch he might make, he crept closer and seized the creature. But the seal was no ordinary beast. The moment he pulled away its sleek swimming skin, it changed before his eyes into a beautiful woman, her dark hair still dripping with seawater. She looked at him with eyes like the deep, and he, struck by her beauty, asked her to be his wife. Without her skin, the seal woman could not return to the sea, so she stayed with him. In time, they had 3 children, and for years they lived together, the sound of the waves always in her ears. One fair day, O'Dowd went out to the fields, leaving her at home. She asked her children if they had ever seen a strange thing in their father's keeping. One child, not knowing any better, said he'd seen something hidden in a stack of oats. Her heart began to race. She went to the stack, pulled it apart, and there it was, her sealskin, soft and glistening. Without a word, she put it on and made for the shore. Her children followed, calling after her, but she could not return to the sea as their mother. To keep them with her in some way, she touched each one, and they turned into 3 stones on the water's edge. She told them, when these 3 stones are gone, Ireland will be free. Before she left, she gave one last warning. The O'Dowd family would never know good fortune until a seal swam into the shore at Knocknacath. Then she slipped into the waves. But the sea can be a cruel keeper of promises. She soon felt sorrow for her children's fate and sent a seal inland towards Knocknacath. It might have mended the O'Dowd's fortunes, but before it could cross the shore, a man struck it down. And from that day to this, the O'Dowds of Sligo have been said to live under a shadow of bad luck. I don't know why it escalated into Ireland's freedom there. It's just so random.
Natural transition into it.
Yeah, she's like, I hate to be leaving my children. I'm going to turn them into stone and base Ireland's freedom on them being able to come back,
Well, that's what I find so interesting, because I've heard a lot of the Selkie stories where the child finds the Selkie skin and then allows the mother to return to the ocean. But the ones I've heard, it was always just the child's either sad forever because it misses its mother, or they try to add a happier touch where the mother like doesn't return but watches over them from the ocean the rest of their lives. But I've never heard of the mother saying, do you know what, you're going to stay right here. This is...
Yeah, and I'm putting this very difficult geopolitical situation
right?
dependent on
a lot of
leaving a
pressure
stone on this beach. Yeah. There is a similar story from Malin in Donegal, which has the seal woman leaving, and the quote is, there wasn't a single day as long as anyone descended from those people were in Malin that their nose wouldn't bleed whenever a seal was killed on those shores.
Okay.
So we're getting environmentalism involved. Like, there's no seal clubbing, nothing happening, or somebody's nose is going to bleed. So the stories are being used as a tool of cultural and environmental respect. It's taboo to harm seals. Another story said, while fishing in Inver, a man and his crew found a seal trapped in their nets and brought it aboard. Soon they heard a haunting lament from the other seals on the cliffs and in the sea. One seal spoke with a human voice. Ah, Bobo, who killed Anna? Who killed Anna? Who killed Anna? The other seals answered, man, as always. Man, as always. Man, as always. There's some kind of haunting about that, isn't there?
There
seals
is.
chanting
Really?
that. Man, as always. Yes. There's a weird contrast as well, though, because I feel like a lot of the Selkie stories are trying to deter people from hurting seals or catching them or anything like that. But then there's another one from County Leitrim. It recounts a fisherman who, after hiding a Selkie's pelt, experienced a prosperous fishing season. And there was a seal often swimming alongside his boat, seemingly shedding tears, which is so sad.
Oh, it is.
Like, so he was
That's
catching
it.
all
I
this
don't know
little...
why he was rewarded.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's like suggesting that like he was rewarded for catching the seal skin. And like, I don't know, it's just a real weird contrast where from all the other ones, because all the other ones are like, leave the seals the hell alone. And then this one is like,
Yeah.
if you get one, you'll get the best catch of your life. Selkies are sometimes aligned with the Aes, which are the fairy folk in Celtic folklore. And we will see a little bit of that also in Icelandic folklore, which we're going to cover next. There is an emotional focus on kinship and the impossibility of fully belonging to both worlds in Irish Selkie tales. And I think, my interpretation anyway, is this echoes the immigrant experience, because there's one thing we Irish are good at doing, it's immigrating. So it's that experience of feeling homesick, but your home has changed so much you don't belong there and you never feel like you fully belong in the other place. So like that immigrant experience, I think, is really similar to the Selkie story, because she never seems to like settle. In a lot of these, like, she'll leave children behind, her human children or her Selkie children behind, you know?
That's really interesting. I've never thought of it from that perspective, but it does. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially in all these sort of more heartbreaking stories where, you know, like it's even in seal form, they seem very unhappy or they seem to be longing for something. Yeah, I just do think it's very much like the immigrant experience. And I think that's why these stories were so popular in Ireland and why they spread so much. And there seems to be a Selkie story in every fishing town that you can encounter here. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
okay, so now we're into Icelandic Selkie traditions. In Icelandic traditions, Selkies, as we usually think of them in Scottish or Orcadian folklore, differ. They can be seals who shed their skins to become human. They exist in a similar form, but they're not the dominant sea being of the culture. In Iceland, these beings are often just called Selur, which means seal in the folktales, but they behave like Selkies, shape-shifting between human and seal form, sometimes marrying humans if their skin is stolen. That said, Iceland also has a richer and broader tradition of sjófólk, which means sea people, and marbendlar, which is the Icelandic word for merfolk, that overlaps with elves and supernatural beings. So they're not exactly considered sea elves in the same sense that the land-dwelling Alfar in Icelandic belief are. Elves, hidden people, the huldurfolk, and sea people are all separate categories, though some older stories blur the lines, especially when describing sea people celebrating Yule in a way that mimics elves or humans. The most famous Icelandic Selkie tale sort of exhibits this a little bit. The tale is called Selchamurin. The story tells of a human who steals a seal's magic skin, trapping the seal person in human form. They marry and have 7 children, but years later, the seal finds the hidden skin and returns to the sea, whispering the words, "Where have I to flee? I've 7 kids in the sea and 7 kids on dry land." She then dives in, leaving their human family behind. Her land husband often spots a seal when he's out on his boat with tears in her eyes, which is pretty heartbreaking.
It is.
Once again, it's like she's torn between both of her lives. And we have a similar tale from another region, which is equally as heartbreaking, which I believe Evan is going to read for us.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to apologize because I'm not going to say some of these names right. Taken from Einar, Ólafur, Sveinsson's The Folk Stories of Iceland, revised by Einar G. Pétursson. Long ago, in the north of Iceland, there lived a young man who set out one Christmas season to attend church. Whether it was Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, no one can quite agree, but night had fallen before he reached the village, and his path took him along the stony shoreline. As he walked, he heard music drifting over the waves. Peering ahead, he saw a wide cave lit from within, and inside, people danced and feasted. But on the rocks outside the cave lay strange things, great sealskins, limp and empty, like bags without shape. There seemed to be one skin for each dancer inside. Curious, the man crept closer. He spotted a smaller skin, quickly snatched it up, folded it tight, and hid it under his arm. Suddenly, the dancers saw him. A great commotion rose, shouts, crashing, and the slap of feet. Each of them grabbed a sealskin, pulled it over themselves, and in a flash, they were gone into the sea. All but one, a young woman, remained, searching desperately for her skin. When she found the man holding it, she pleaded, then fought to take it back, but he would not let it go. At last, with no choice, she went with him. She became his wife, and for 12 years they lived together. She bore him a son and a daughter, but all that time, a lone seal was often seen in the bay, a seal the villagers whispered was her fiancé, keeping watch. Then, one day, when her husband was away, she searched the house until she found her stolen skin. She wrapped it around herself, and without a word, ran to the sea and disappeared beneath the waves. The people say she never came back, but some claim that as her children grew older, they would hear singing on winter nights, drifting over the water from a far-off cave.
Thank you. Yeah, there's something about the seal fiance that really makes me sad when I hear that story.
Yeah. I know one thing that kind of gets me is that the man deliberately goes for a smaller seal skin. That just feels kind of gross to me.
It is gross because it's like it was either a child or quite a small woman, and he goes for the little one because he's like, this is going to be an easy target, you know?
Yeah.
And there's that image of them actually fighting each other for it and her trying to take it back. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
She has the patience to stay with him for 12 years, which is wild. That's the thing in these stories. It's always she stayed with him for 12 years or 7 years. And you're just, how? You're being kept prisoner.
Oh, it's such a long time to just be stuck with someone. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. And it's very much like that, when divorce was really taboo, I suppose. That's when these stories were more accepted, and it's just no, you gotta make it work and you stay with the person even if they're treating you horribly, you know?
Yeah, just tough it out, right?
Yeah. Kids these days, they have no backbone. They leave their horrible relationships. Crazy of us, huh?
Oh, I know. Wanting happiness. Psh.
Wanting basic respect.
Right.
So, as I mentioned about the sea elf aspect, comparisons have been attempted between Selkies and Seal Woman in the Laxdæla saga. The darker tale of Selkolla sees a child who was being taken to be baptized when the parents caused to commit a, quote, sinful act. Let you use your imagination what that was. That's literally how it's described, a sinful act. Okay.
Couldn't wait.
No, definitely. They were just overcome. Actually, one of the retellings was like they were overcome with desire for each other. Like,
oh my
that's a
goodness.
lot more romantic way of saying it.
Jeez.
The child transforms into a horrific being and is abandoned.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Is it because of the sinful act? Maybe. We don't know. Soon after, people start to notice a strange woman in the area. She is sometimes human, sometimes with the head of a seal, but with human eyes, which is absolutely horrifying.
I'm picturing it right now, and I don't love the image.
Oh.
Good lord. Earning her the nickname Selkolla, which is seal head. Unlike traditional Selkies, she isn't a sea spirit of playful or melancholy charm. She is feared as a dark, disruptive presence who causes havoc in the local area. Selkolla is eventually tied to the rocky cliff face. I think this is very like Greek mythology. She's tied to the rocky cliff face, and her appearance seems to serve as a warning about transgression and moral failure. So she's like, they string her up as an example.
Yeah, but like she wasn't even the one who did anything wrong.
Yeah. She just like, she's only guilty of being like a creepy bitch. That's it. Like, and I mean, who among us?
That's it. We've all had our moments.
Exactly. You see me in the middle of the night when I'm like getting up to pee at 4 a.m. I could be strung to the cliff face. No bother. So I'll just sum up Selkies across the three cultures that we mentioned. We have Scottish and Northern Scottish Island Selkies. These are the classic seal brides. A man steals a woman's skin, she becomes his wife and bears his children, but eventually finds her skin and returns to the sea. Orkney and Shetland tales stress the individuality of each seal skin and the inevitable heartbreak when the Selkie regains it. Selkies are sometimes seen as souls of the drowned or fallen angels, giving the stories a melancholic, haunting quality. Irish Selkies, sometimes called merrows or mermaids. Some of them are very clearly linked to seals. Families believed themselves descended from seals, and harming seals brought misfortune, but capturing them brought good catches. Irish stories focus on kinship, moral obligations, and gentler human-Selkie relationships. And then Icelandic Selkies. Seal-shifting beings may also be called marmenlar, or elves who blend Selkie and elven traits. Icelandic tales retain the skin theft motif, but often mix in darker, more supernatural elements, like the elves, along with the moral consequences. So it's a lot of this lovely like blending, mishmashing of folklore and the retellings, and everybody adding something in that interests them or that they want to say, they want to tell you to think, because a lot of them are very heavy-handed. It's like,
yes,
if you harm a seal, these horrible things are going to happen to you and your family, so maybe you shouldn't harm a seal. Like, okay, I've picked that up. I see what you're putting down there. And because this is Rowan Pine and we have pretty much rebranded as a feminist folklore podcast, because we were going that way anyway, so we were like, let's just call ourselves what we are. I wanted to add in some feminist reflections, which Evan has also hit on those a little bit with the targeting of the smallest seal skin, which is a big red flag, obviously. But we have the Selkie women are usually objectified. Now, that's not to say that the male Selkies weren't, like, as we have said, romance novel hero covers. But the woman in a Selkie tale is almost always described as exceptionally beautiful, sometimes as the most beautiful being the man has ever seen. In some versions, she is singled out as the most beautiful among a group of seals on the shore, which is weird. Like,
just ogling the seals, like, oh, I can tell that one.
Yeah, that's a hot seal over there. Like, what do you mean? This prompts her capture. She is typically young, with only a few accounts describing her as old. Her hair is often highlighted by the sea, so she's got that cute surfer girl thing going on. Usually long and fair, yellow or golden. In our stories, we have the stolen skin as a metaphor. So the control over women's bodies and autonomy. A woman's seal skin equals her agency. The theft is equal to the coercion into marriage and domesticity. A few versions show how the Selkie woman adjusts to human society through baptism, formal education, or gradual adaptation to human life and language. While she may retain some antisocial traits, She's often portrayed as a good housewife and brings prosperity to her husband. She is sometimes happy on land or falls in love with her husband. However, she may also, in other stories, be unhappy, long for the sea, watch or visit it regularly, or sing sea songs, sometimes restrained by the man. In some versions, a seal visits the shore near her home, sometimes identified as her former husband, lover, or relative. So yeah, like that stolen skin thing is, I think that's just what makes it like so heartbreaking about these stories, because it's just like by stealing her skin, you're stealing her agency and literally a part of her life away from her. She can't go back to that part of herself without it. It's not like she forgets. Like, it's not like she suddenly is like, oh, this is fine. I have amnesia for that whole part of my life. No, she remembers it, which is worse for sometimes fucking 12 years. Crazy.
Oh, that's it. It's such a long time. And then I don't know, stealing the skin, just like such a big representation of exerting that physical control. And I feel like for me, it's the extra layer of sadness of the other seals visiting, hoping to keep an eye on her, I know that was one of the things we saw in the Nova Scotian Selkie stories Evan shared, that when she was finally able to find her skin and return to the shore, there were a bunch of seals and Selkies in the water waiting to greet her. So
they never forget her either. So that's like the other part of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the ones where, like, even when she falls in love with the husband, it tends to be like, okay, but this still doesn't feel good in the end.
Yeah. This feels coercive, control-y.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, how can she really consent when you've, like, because by taking away her skin, you're taking her away her ability to escape, her ability to swim, which even if that wasn't something that was important to her, that's literally like, it's the only place she can go because the only other people or the only other like beings that love her are in the sea. So you're taking away her home. So the narrative framing is interesting. In most versions, the Selkie must choose between freedom and family, mirroring historic social constraints on women's choices, as we've just been talking about. She never chose motherhood in a lot of these stories or domesticity, but she's punished in the narrative for it when she rejects it. How could she possibly leave her 7 children that she never chose to have? Or like, how could she possibly like leave this husband that she married under duress?
It was forced to.
Yeah, and like these stories are, I feel like in the old tellings of the stories, it was very much, oh, like she broke his heart by leaving him, this man who stole her away. When you look at it like especially through modern eyes, you're like, well, it's not really her fault, right? Like what do you expect? You know, trying to clip her wings or clip her fins, I guess. While we're talking about the modern lens through which we're looking at this, reclaiming your skin can be a metaphor for self-recovery after coercion, abuse, or societal pressures. Some modern retellings, like Song of the Sea or The Secret of Rowan Inish, which are both, I think Rowan Inish is based in Ireland, and I think Song of the Sea is Irish as well. They reclaim Selkie stories as narratives of identity, homecoming, and intergenerational healing. So I think it's coming back to that like immigrant experience thing that we're talking about as well, and like the sense of belonging and becoming who you are and realizing that you'll never fully fit into each category and you sort of have to make your own way. And the final point that we will leave off on is the magical woman theme. So the Selkies' human husbands are usually ordinary men, fishermen, or farmers. So she's the ultimate manic pixie dream girl. She is going to add magic and bravery to his mundane life, which I think is huge. And I think that's what would attract a lot of people to these stories, because you're like, there is like, I'm so lonely, but there's a magical woman out there that will give me everything I ever wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And she has no choice but to kind of succumb to whatever the man's will is.
The old version of these people who are now saying that they have like the perfect AI girlfriend. So
yes,
it's everything that you could say that you want in a person, like, because the Selkie has no concept of like human, only from what she's seen from the sea. She's no concept of human dynamics and social norms and all of that. So she's perfectly moldable. You can tell her whatever you want, and she kind of has to believe you because you're her only like anchor to the human world. So with that in mind, Chelsea is going to read out a poem I found, which I think embodies this idea a lot. Take it away, Chelsea.
Selkie by Brittany E. Burns. The wind blew the hanging shells until they snapped and broke. The ocean curled beneath its rage. Her skin shone like sun-bleached shells shattered on a nest of kelp. The silky skin I stole to make her mine. Her strange voice uttered no complaint when those pale bare feet touched grass. Her new legs fought the thinness of the air. I consumed her desire. She crashed against me like the sea. What I stole, I could not keep. She found my cowardice, buried deep in the surf, and never glancing behind, dove downward into the sea.
Wonderful. Yeah, that line about she found my cowardice buried deep in the surf, and basically she took it away. I think that encompasses like the attraction of these stories from that old-timey male point of view that I think and I hope people now when they hear these stories, they're just more like, what the hell? You can't just steal a woman from the sea. What do you mean? So yeah, that was such a beautiful way of rounding out the episode, I think, because even though we still love these stories and they're so interesting to us, I think it's good that now we can look back at them and just see them as the heartbreaking, really sort of sad, bittersweet, because it's always about love and loss and being forced to grow in a way that you may not have chosen for yourself. I just love the whole story and the whole ideas around it. And thank you so much, guys, for doing this episode with me, because I think your Selkies episode was wonderful and it was beautifully atmospheric and I really, really enjoyed it. And it sort of solidified for me that I was going to choose Selkies for Sea-Tember this year.
Oh, thank you. This was such a great experience, just getting to kind of dive deeper into the different cultures' interpretation of the Selkie story. And just, I loved looking at it from the feminist angle, because of course it's impossible not to with the story of the Selkie, but just to kind of have that emphasis on it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very much how we ended up giving ourselves the moniker, the Feminist Folklore podcast, because so many of all of these stories and creatures, we would go into it just completely neutral, and then we would see some horrible way that a woman was being treated or being portrayed, and then we'd end up in a rant where you know what, let's just lean into this and let's just end up being a feminist folklore podcast, because it's clearly who we are.
Right. It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. So yeah. Do you want to let people know where to find you, or maybe your handles on social media if people want to check you guys out?
Absolutely. So we release episodes every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, mostly because we have relatives that don't know how to use Apple Podcast or Spotify. And you can find us on social media. We mostly use Instagram at It Came From the Maritimes, but we do have Facebook, and I'm trying to figure out how to use TikTok. So we're, and we do have an obligatory Blue Sky that we post on once a week. So.
Oh, same here. Yeah. Same here. I love the idea of Blue Sky, but I just forget it exists constantly.
Same here.
I've mainly been using it just to post memes. That
or
create
use.
a meme that we wanted to create ourselves that I can screenshot and then post on Instagram. So that's what I've been using it for.
Perfect.
But that is great, and I will link everything that every place that you can listen to It Came From the Maritimes and follow in the bio of this episode, or in the show notes even. Hopefully you guys will go check them out and show them some love, and be sure to comment and say that you came from Rowan Pine.
Yes, please do.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode on Selkies of Rowan Pine. My name is Niamh.
And I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Evan.
And fuck yeah, folklore. Goodbye.
Bye.